Would like to call to order the June 6th Citizens Advisory Committee meeting.
This conference will now be recorded.
Would like to begin with a roll call.
Byrd? Cooper?
Here.
Gilmore?
Here.
Gleason?
Here.
Hodges? Holloway?
Here.
Kiefer?
Here.
Lord? Nolan?
Here.
Obleton? Patel? Rasso Adela?
Here.
Rasso Allen?
Here.
Wills?
Here.
And we do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I'd like to open the floor for any citizens with CAC business. Seeing none, I'd like to move to a review and approval of the minutes of the April 4th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry, I didn't catch. Okay,
Willis.
thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Kiefer. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Thank you. Next, we will go to a review and acceptance of the financial report through March. Heather, is there any comments?
There was some comments in the updates to the packet. So for those of you who are newer, so our CDBG agreements are 1-year agreements. They run from July 1st to June 30th of each year. And our subrecipients are expected to spend down the full amount of their grant within that time frame. And we go through quite an extensive kind of contracting process on the front end, where we go back and forth with the subrecipient and we agree what it is that CDBG is going to pay for and in what percentage. And for all of our subrecipients at the moment in the public services, it's staff costs for all of them. And so, we lay out what the year is going to look like, and then we say best laid plans, because as we know, staffing has been a challenge this year for a lot of agencies and a lot of businesses. And so we have seen some turnover in some of our agencies. And what that does is when you have a vacancy, CDBG doesn't have a position to pay for at that time. And so what we do is we do amendments. So we may switch the CDBG funding from one staff person to another staff person. We may, if we're paying for 2 staff people, we may increase the percentage on the remaining staff person since you have a vacancy for the second one. So Dawn Cameron in our office, who those of you who have been around for a few years, she works with the subrecipients and does amendments to them. So we work extensively with them, and sometimes even despite that, sometimes they don't quite make the expenditure deadline. And so we do think most of our agencies are going to make it this year. We've got pretty good read on those. But I do just want to point out in the updates that we do have a couple of agencies, and that's Salvation Army, Boys and Girls, and Family Resources, that even despite having done amendments, if they have staff vacancies that come up very late in the year, there's just not enough time left to do an amendment that's going to change that. So we do think we'll have small amounts of money left from those 3. Nothing major, nothing terrifying, but just wanted to let you know that we have been working with them, and just due to staffing turnover, which is a thing we all deal with these days, if we have a late in the year vacancy, it's very hard for them to spend down the money in time. So that's my update.
Are there any questions?
Oh, one more comment.
Yes, please.
However, for the benefit of new members, I do want to point out that even if those agencies do not spend down all of their funding, the city does not lose access to that money. The contract ends on June 30th, and then, I'm sorry, Austin, you were a maybe, so I had to put you at the table. Sorry. The program year ends on June 30th, and the contract period with the subrecipients end. But it's not like City of Davenport loses access to that money. What it does is it goes back into what we call a reprogramming process that comes through in the fall. So the money that they don't spend will come back through CAC for consideration in the fall as part of reprogramming. So it will still benefit people in Davenport. It will still be spent here. It will just probably not be spent on the same agencies that it was originally planned for.
Thank you for the clarification. Are any questions or thoughts? Carl?
Yeah, just real quick here, it says, a lot of these are like $300,000 for administration planning.
So if, for the benefit of the new members, we have essentially two big categories of funding. We have public services and non-public services. So, so looking at the public service categories, which are the ones that begin with Big Brothers and go down to Vera French, that category is capped by HUD. So if you notice in that category, we're only allowed to spend 15% of the grant each year maximum on public services. So that's anything that is not a physical change to something, typically, or a direct financial benefit. So those are services that we think about, like youth programs, senior programs, transportation programs, things like that. Non-public services, which is everything above that public service line, that includes administration and planning, which is the funding that the city is granted by HUD to administer the funds, which we're allowed to spend up to 20% of the grant on that, and we actually fall short of that. We don't spend the full 20% we're allowed. Economic development is loans and grants to small businesses, and then our housing rehab and revitalization, which has its own program delivery costs, admin costs that are associated with rehab. And so those tend to be the really big dollar categories. Number one, because they're not capped in the same way public services are, but number two, because housing repairs are expensive and business repairs are expensive. And so we tend to spend, there tends to be a need to spend a lot more money in those categories than there would be in the public services.
Thank you for the question. Any others? All right.
Make a motion to approve?
It's been motioned and seconded by Lord. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Great. Thank you. Next is the preview of year 49 public input process. Heather?
I'm actually going to turn the mic over. Megan Overton, she's worked in our office for a number of years now, and I know for some of you who've been around for a few years, you've seen her come in on an annual basis to talk about the plan and public input, and due to some shifting of responsibilities, she's now going to be assisting here with the Citizens Advisory Committee every month. So she'll do her normal dog and pony show about public input, and then you'll see her here with me every month now. Dawn and Megan have switched up some responsibilities.
Okay, thank you, Heather. So in your packet, starts kind of towards the back. It's most of the pages. Hopefully you guys had a chance to kind of review it. There's a lot of information. It's mostly just reference materials from last year. So this is our proposed public input for year 49, which would actually start July 1st of 2023. So we just kind of start the process of gathering public input early on. Our proposal is similar to what we've done the last couple years. We kind of keep it similar to each of our years within a 5-year plan cycle. So this would be year 49 would be year 4 of the 5-year cycle. Had to think about that for a second. So what our proposal is we would like to do a combination of virtual, in-person, and survey. The public input will be open for approximately 6 weeks. We're proposing mid-July through the end of August. So our outreach methods will include a survey. We use SurveyMonkey, and then we also have paper copies that we distribute through our subrecipients at in person, at our city buildings, that sort of thing. Last year's survey is actually included in the packet. If you want to take a look at it, we don't usually make any changes to the survey for that 5-year cycle. We try to keep it consistent so we can kind of compare it throughout that 5-year cycle. Then we'll do a virtual public input meeting. It's kind of worked really nicely the last 2 years when we've done it. We use GoToMeeting. It's the PowerPoint that you'll see in the packet. It kind of goes over everything that we want to talk about. We give different stopping spots where people can make comments or ask questions, and then we put it on the city's YouTube page for people to then view at other times if they weren't able to make it during the live viewing, and they can email us comments or give us a call, whatever works for them. And then finally, the in-person, we kind of switched to open house style in person a couple years ago, and we feel like it's a better format for people. The formal, sit down in person, we didn't really get a lot of feedback or anyone coming. So we started going to the farmers market a couple years ago, and we really feel like people are willing to talk to us at the farmers market. It's a good place to collect people's attention. So that's kind of our non-formal way to just generally engage the public. So what we usually do is we bring like a big map, we color code our different activities, economic development, housing, infrastructure, public services, and like let them put dots where they think, where would you like to see this? And then we do like general comment cards, kind of talk to them about the programs, and then we also have copies of our survey available. So we're proposing 2 or 3 dates. I'm proposing Saturday and Sundays. We have tried the Wednesdays at the farmers market, and there's really not that many people there. Usually people are there for like the classic car shows and stuff like that and aren't very interested. So Saturdays and Sundays are the better days to go. And then we also have Party in the Park, which is a city neighborhood kind of gathering. That's coming back again this year, so it's at different parks throughout the city. There's 3 dates that would kind of fall within our public comment periods, which is the end of July and a couple in August. So I would have whoever is our staff for our department's table bring some of our same information. Might not do the map activity, I'll have to see who's going to it, but we'll at least bring comment cards, our surveys, and that sort of thing to the Party in the Park. So that is kind of generally how we're hoping to run the public input. We're open to any other ideas. If you guys have any suggestions or want us to mix it up anyway, go to other events if you know of any in the community, kind of mid-July through August, if there's anything you guys think might be a good place, good spot to hit. And then if there's any comments on the survey, the presentation, or anything else, I would like them back by June 17th, which is about 2 weeks from now. So I guess, is there any questions? Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, actually I hadn't. So yeah, that's a good idea too. Yeah. I would say I think our Genesis contact has bounced back a few times, so maybe we need a new Genesis contact anyway. So if you have a good point of contact for Genesis, if you could send it to us, that would be great. Okay, perfect. That is actually, he makes a good point. When we do outreach our survey, we do have a very extensive mailing list that we send it to. We send it through a housing cluster, our subrecipients, our school district. We send it to you guys, so you guys can also share it. Who am I missing?
We have quite a few affordable housing developments that we have under monitoring through our home and CDBG program. So we send those out to the property managers, and ask them to share them with their tenants, because obviously we know there's low or moderate income people living there because they're still receiving, assistance, subsidy. The key thing there, and really with public input as a whole, since I know there's several new people. So when we do our 5-year plan, we have to do really, really extensive public input. I mean, it's a much more, this is like a mini version of what we have to do for the 5-year plan. And so in that 5-year plan, you are gathering input from the public and consulting with agencies, and HUD has a whole list of people that and agencies that you're required to hit. Affordable housing providers, civil rights providers, businesses, county government, state government. So we have to check all of those boxes. Agencies that deal with those with disabilities, school districts, we have to check all of these boxes. And that happens every 5 years. And then each year within that 5-year plan, you are going out again each year to kind of get a mini version of that input to see, are the things we decided in our 5-year plan still relevant? Are they still valid, or has something changed so dramatically that those aren't needed anymore? And obviously in most years, I don't want to say nothing would change in 5 years, but it wouldn't be very common for things to change a lot in 5 years in huge global shifts of what your community needs. I mean, every community needs affordable housing. Every community needs affordable childcare. Every community needs affordable health care and mental health services. I mean, these are things that are just big, difficult issues that every community faces. So we would expect every year and every 5 years, we're going to get some of that feedback. But because of COVID, I think there are, maybe more chance in these couple of years than in previous years that we would see big shifts in things. So we are making an effort. We make an effort every year to get public input, but we are making an effort to really touch on those things that might be COVID related to make sure we're getting to those needs. And then what happens is we take that guidance we put in our 5-year plan and the input that we gather each year within that 5-year plan, and we kind of mush those together and figure out, do the needs that we identified in the first year of the plan still count? And if they do, how are we going to address them? And have any new ones popped up that we need to add in? So that's kind of why we're doing all of this public input. And within that, we have to check a whole bunch of boxes because that's what HUD requires. So that's where when Megan's talking about we have a pretty extensive mailing list, it's because HUD is requiring that we do the outreach to low-income and moderate-income housing providers and disability service providers and civil rights agencies, and this kind of laundry list of required consultations. So we're always trying to make sure we're reaching those. But the other thing that we do is, obviously the CAC is part of our public input process. 15 is a lot of people for a border commission. It's the biggest border commission that the city of Davenport has. And the reason that we have it is because we need a diverse and extensive network of people to network through. So we send out our information to our CAC members, and we rely on you to help us spread that word through your personal and your professional networks as well. And then that way we can just, keep trying to reach new corners of the city that normally wouldn't respond to some of these surveys. And the other thing to remember too, and we talk about this every year, surveys, I mean, if you get a 20% response rate on a survey, you're doing really good. It's just surveys are, we've all received them at home and we've all checked them in the recycling bin. So it's hard to get people to reply to surveys. You really have to do a lot of reminders and emails and pushing to get surveys to be replied to. So we do our very best, and we rely on you to assist us in that.
Thank you, Heather. I'm glad you mentioned the CAC because that's important that we are also promoting input as well. Also, too, I thought it'd be a good idea maybe if we had like some meetings at like LULAC or at Friendly House or things like that. They do like dinners and things like that. That may also be a good opportunity to have an area for responses.
I was just going to suggest, and you guys are probably already on that, but we've got 3 libraries in our city for either a kiosk or
Yep.
go to the such and such a desk to, fill out the
So
survey?
in some years, I don't know that we did it last year or the year before, but in some years, they were able to set it up so, a lot of people don't have computers at home and they go to the library to use the computers that are free at the library. And in some years, they've been able to set it up for us that to log in to use the free computer, you had to take our survey. So, that's a little forced participation, but it's participation nonetheless.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Heather.
And I just wanted to say too, just about the public input process in general, and just any topic in general. Don't ever feel like the only time you can reach out to us is at a meeting formally. If you have ideas or suggestions, you're always welcome to email or call and we can talk them through. Sometimes there are things we can do, sometimes there's things we can't do because of HUD's requirements, and sometimes you might just have a question of why do we do a thing that we do, and we're always happy to talk through with anybody, a seasoned member or a new member the same. We welcome those conversations, so don't feel like, oh, you forgot something and you leave the meeting and you can't tell us till next month. Especially as we go through these summer months where we may not have as many meetings, you're always welcome to reach out to us at any time.
And so, Heather, if one of us had a organization we wanted to participate in the CAC process, how should we refer them? How should we help them?
When you say participate, do you mean like host a public input session, or do you mean like apply for a grant?
To apply for a grant to become a subrecipient.
So a couple things about that. So for the benefit of newer members, so we go through an allocation process once a year. And that process kind of begins in late November or early December, and we have an application workshop. And any agency that thinks they meet the requirements and would like to learn more about CDBG is required to come to that workshop to apply for funds. And we go over some of the rules and regulations and kind of the application form and what's going to have to be done to apply. So if you know of any agencies that are interested in learning more, you would just want to have them email us, and we keep an email list where we, throughout the year, we keep an email list of agencies that have indicated interest. And then as we get closer to that workshop in November, December, we reach out to the ones on our kind of reminder list to say, hey, you said you wanted to come to this workshop. Here's the date of it. So that's kind of the first step. But even before that, I would say if there's an agency, especially a newer agency, that wants to know what is involved in CDBG, they can always email us, and Dawn is a great resource for that, to talk them through the new what they're going to be required to do, because some agencies might need to spend the months between now and November, December working on getting policies and procedures in place and things to strengthen them to be in a position to be able to apply for CDBG. So it's never too early for them to reach out, and she's really good at talking through with the agencies what they're going to have to do. So that's kind of the first part of it. The second part is, as members of the CAC, you do have to sign a conflict of interest form disclosure. And so I would just remind everyone that if there are agencies that you have a financial or decision-making interest in, so that would mean you work for an agency or a member of your household works for the agency, and or you're on the board of directors or someone in your household is on the board of directors, that you make decisions for the agency. So either you're in a financial relationship with them or you're in a decision-making relationship with them. You would have a conflict of interest under the CDBG regulations. And if you believe that might be the case, you would want to talk to us, and we'll connect you with the legal department, and they can help you through what would be required there. So usually your minimum is probably going to have to recuse yourself from decisions regarding that agency. But we would defer to the legal department on how they would want to handle that. So we rely on you to send them out to your personal and professional networks, but we just remind you that as decision makers for the CDBG grant, agencies that you have a financial or decision-making interest with, you would have a conflict of interest with those agencies. So not saying you do or don't. I was just kind of doing it for the whole group,
Please.
not directed at you.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments at all? Thank you for the overview. Is there any other business for the CAC committee tonight?
From my side, I would just say, we talked last time, historically, the CAC has done a number of different things during the summer. In some years, they've chosen to meet and have informal presentations during the summer where the agencies come in and kind of give a mid-year update. The last couple years, because of COVID, we haven't been doing that. Even before COVID, the summer of 2019, I think, or 2018, I think was the last time we did it, and we had stopped even before COVID just because we were having trouble getting quorum at meetings in the summertime because everybody's so busy. And so the decision then was to continue to not have the summer meetings during 2018 or 2019 is we decided not to have them. And then obviously 2020 and 2021, we were trying to minimize meetings as much as we could. So we didn't have them at that time too. So from a staff perspective, we don't anticipate any business that you would have to vote on at the July, August, or September meetings. The next amount of business that we would have for CAC would definitely be in October, when Megan will bring back the results of the public input and we'll work on what's called local objectives, which are kind of the categories we want to address for the next year plan. So it would be up to the CAC if you want to meet in July, August, and September. If you do, I've listed the next meeting date as July 11th, but if you don't choose to meet, the next meeting would be on October 3rd.
Thank you.
So that would be 3 months we would miss.
Yes.
June, July, July,
it's June
August,
now,
September.
so July, August, and September. Yep. And both the July and the September meeting, if we would have them, would be a week late anyway because of holidays. So it tends to be a kind of compressed time period anyway. And as I said, there's nothing that the CAC would need to vote on that the staff anticipates at this time. Most of the voting and decision-making that the CAC does occurs in the winter months.
Can I make a motion
You may make a motion.
that we don't meet until October?
Second.
There's motion and seconded that we do not meet for the months of July, August, and September. All those in favor say, I have a question, go ahead.
Yes, good point. We often would add the language unless pressing CAC business arises. Yeah.
So the motion is to suspend our meetings for July, August, September unless there's pressing CAC business. Is that correct? Been motion seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so we will not meet again until October 3rd, is that correct?
That's right, October 3rd. And at the October 3rd meeting, we will bring forth the results of the public input. But in the meantime, when we start scheduling our outreach events and sending out the survey, you'll be receiving those from us by email. And we encourage you to share those widely. So, so once those are ready, Megan will send those. And then if you have any questions or anything in the meantime, you can obviously reach right back out to us.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn unless there's any other business.
I second it.
We have a motion? You have a second? Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. That concludes our June 6, 2000 Citizens Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful summer.